My name is India Opal Baloney, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store to get a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes, and I came back with a dog. This is what happened. I walked into the produce department of the Winn-Dixie grocery store, and I almost bumped right into the store manager. He was standing there all red-faced and screaming and waving his arms all around. "Who let a dog in here?" he kept on shouting. "Who let a dirty dog in here?" At first, I didn't see a dog. There was just a lot of vegetables rolling around on the floor. Tomatoes and onions and green peppers. And there was what seemed like a whole army of Winn-Dixie employees running around and waving their arms just the same way as the store manager was waving his. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was big and ugly, and he looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out, and he was wagging his tail, and he stopped and smiled right at me. I had never before in my life seen a dog smile, but that is what he did. He pulled back his lips and showed me all his teeth. Then he wagged his tail so hard that he knocked some oranges off the display, and they went rolling everywhere, mixing in with the tomatoes and onions and green peppers. The manager screamed, "Somebody grab that dog!" The dog went running over to the manager, wagging his tail and smiling. He stood up on his hind legs. You could tell all he wanted to do was get face to face with the manager and thank him for the real good time he was having in the produce department. But somehow he managed to knock the manager over, and the manager must have been having a real bad day because lying there on the floor in front of everybody, he started to cry. "Please," he said, "somebody call the pound." "Oh, wait a minute," I hollered. "That's my dog. Don't call the pound." All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me like I knew I had done something big. And maybe stupid, too. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. "Here, boy," I said. The dog stopped licking the manager's face and perked his ears up and looked at me, like he was trying to remember where he knew me from. "Here, boy," I said again, and then I figured the dog was probably just like everybody else in the world and wanted to be called by a name. Only I didn't know his name, so I just said the first thing that came to my head. "Here, Winn-Dixie." And that dog trotted over to me like he had been doing it his whole life. The manager sat up and gave me a hard stare, like maybe I was making fun of him. "It's his name," I said. "Honest." The manager said, "Don't you know not to bring a dog into the grocery store?" "Yes, sir," I told him. "He got in by mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "Come on, Winn-Dixie," I told the dog. I started walking, and he followed along behind me as I went out of the produce department, down the cereal aisle, past the cashiers, and out the door. Once we were safe outside, I checked him over real careful, and he didn't look that good. He was big, but skinny, and there were bald patches all over him, places where he didn't have any fur at all. Mostly, he looked like a big old piece of brown carpet that had been left out in the rain. "You're a mess," I told him. "I bet you don't belong to nobody." He smiled at me. He did that thing again where he pulled back his lips and showed me his teeth. He smiled so big that it made him sneeze. It was like he was saying, "I know I'm a mess. Isn't it funny?" And it's hard not to immediately fall in love with a dog with a good sense of humor. "Come on," I told him. "Let's see what the preacher has to say about you." And the two of us, me and Winn-Dixie, started walking home.